everyone, and welcome back to From the Earth to the Moon podcast. I'm Elton. This is Andy, as always.
Hello there. You were about to say the Grand Prix podcast, weren't you?
Nearly was. I struggle with every single intro nowadays. I'd rather just go, yeah, hi, let's get on with the show. So that's what we're going to do. We're here to talk about part 5 of the series, which is called Spider. Now, this is about the LEM, isn't it?
It is about the LEM, the development of the LEM and Apollo 9, which was the first manned mission with a lunar module to fly.
Yep. What was the first mission with the lunar module to fly, where it was unpiloted?
I believe that was Apollo 5, and I believe it was flown with a LEM without legs.
Right.
Yes, it was the first unmanned flight of a lunar module. That was in 1968 on a Saturn 1B.
Nice one. Oh, okay. So the smaller one with the milk stool.
It didn't have the milk stool because it flew from Pad 37.
Ah, okay.
It was only when they decommissioned Pad 37, I think about 69, that when they went to the bigger gantries where the Saturn V's were launching, they needed a little stool to sit it on.
I see. Good stuff. Okay, well, should we get into this episode then? Because I'm really looking forward to this one.
Well, this is one of my favourite episodes of the series, and a welcome balm after the last one.
Yeah, this is possibly in line with my favourite episode. The first episode was my favourite so far.
Yeah.
I think this has got a totally different feel to it.
Totally different, yeah.
Yeah, it's got a real upbeat, it's got lots of upbeat music all the way through it. It's got a real upbeat tone to it as well. Mm-hmm. And I could watch this in a full-length feature film. I would be happy to watch that.
It's almost a shame the entire series isn't done in this style. And while I love the episodes for the most part to date, I think this is kind of more of a docudrama.
Yeah.
Isn't it? You know, I love the use of archive footage throughout, which, going back to something I said last time, it has so much more impact when you're actually seeing the stuff that was filmed at the time. I like the fact you have a narrator guiding you through some of the stuff, you know, a voiceover, just kind of connecting it. I like the framing device with the Grumman guy, Tom Kelly, you know, doing his Great Escape thing. I love Great Escape music. That's awesome throughout.
Well, that's the upbeat sound there, isn't it?
What is that? Yeah, and the theme for this episode is a track called Spider, and it's one of the few tracks from this series you can actually download. I think the composer released it.
Okay.
And it's just such a good, positive piece of music. And it does something that, you know, I'm very prone to anyway, but I think other people as well. It makes you emphasize with the machine. It kind of connects you. LM3, Spider, is a character. And I legitimately feel bad for it when you realize that it's done. It's done its duty, and now it's going to fall back to Earth. You know, you feel sad for it. It literally feels like a character, and it does it really, really well.
I totally agree with you. Even from the very first seeds of that character, shall we say, with the little wooden toy on the
little model
desk.
With paper clips. Yeah,
that is so cool. I love that little model. That looks wicked.
Yeah,
and man, it's so good. We are there. I think they talk about, you know, the baby, and it's kind of their child, isn't it? We are there watching their kid grow. It's going from from concept, from a twinkle in someone's eye, up to letting someone go off to college somewhere. It's brilliant. I love it.
Mm-hmm. It's definitely one of my favorite episodes of the series. It might be my favorite episode of the series. I'll have to let you know when we get to the end, but it's my favorite we've seen so far.
Right. Well, from now on, I'm going in totally blind because I don't recognize any of the remaining episodes. So from here on out, I don't know. So looking forward to it.
That's cool. I like this, and as with all the episodes, we kind of start with a little quote, a little analogy from Tom Hanks.
Yeah.
I like the analogy about, you know, Michelangelo painting the Sistine Chapel, and you can't have the great works without the great preparation, the great the infrastructure being put in place, which is kind of cool. It's that whole sense of you can't paint a Sistine Chapel until you built the scaffolding to support you.
That is true, but I was sat there going, okay, did he just compare the Sistine Chapel to the design of the lem? And I was
he did.
Kind of not the same. I get what he's trying to get at, but for me, nowhere near on par. Just nowhere near.
Fair enough. I certainly think both equally impressive in their own respects.
Look, but it's a vehicle. That's what it is, isn't it? It's not a work of art. I think it takes a little while to get used to the look of it, and I like the design concept and path they had to go down to get to where they finally end up, and it's a brilliant journey. I love the thought behind everything. Ripping out seats. What is that about? Ripping out seats, but it makes so much sense.
Oh yeah, it's very much for design follows a form. It has to be there because it has to do a certain thing. If it does, if you don't need it, you don't need it, because weight is just so critical to get the thing there. And so I mean, I do think it's a work of art. I legitimately do. I think it's engineered. I mean, it is in the eye of a beholder, but no less care and attention went into it, I think. Okay. And also, and again, maybe it's because I've always grown up. It's always been a thing for all of my life. It's just it has existed. But it's always just there's been something about it that it's a very complex shape, and I think when I was growing up, it's pleasing to look at a complex shape and to pick it out because it's all very geometric. Yes. It's triangles and circles and squares and everything like that. And when I was younger, it was a pleasing thing to look at for me.
And it has a face.
Yes, it has a face.
It does, and that's what warms humans to it, I think. Because we can see, we're programmed to see faces in everything. We're supposed to see faces in clouds and sand and stuff like that. And as soon as you get the triangles and the little nose on there, you're like, oh, it's a face. And he's got little legs. It's like that little doll in Toy Story where it just comes out and he's got the baby's head and it's got the weird, crazy spider legs on it.
It is a bit of a Frankenstein's monster there. I will grant you that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like it. And no, I think the analogy, I mean, some people will look at the Sistine Chapel and say, well, it's just a painting.
Yeah, that is true.
It's there you go. It's like, they both are very impressive in their own respects. And I appreciate the analogy because what he's basically saying is before you can paint that, you have to build the scaffolding. Before you can walk on the moon, you have to get to the moon.
Look, trust me, I get it. I get why it's been said. For me, though, Sistine Chapel is timeless. It will be there long after man has gone. And yet this was used. It's a very, very important step. And it is a work of art in its own right. But all
I'll say is I will bet you dollars for donuts there'll be lunar module descent stages on the moon long after the Sistine Chapel has gone.
Oh yeah, it's true, yeah. Yeah, okay. Well, yeah. Where's the rest of it? It's just the bottom bit. It's just that toy in Toy Story. It wouldn't have had the personality without the head. And the face of the lunar module has gone. It's just the arse.
It is a bit of a shame that it doesn't look like that anymore there. But as we know from Futurama, they do return it there at some point for reasons. So I feel we're maybe getting a bit caught up though in that opening bit. I do want to point out one other thing that I've really liked and I thought was quite funny. We see a series of science fiction magazine covers. Mm-hmm. And in one of them, you have an astronaut in his full spacesuit, helmet on and everything like that, talking into a microphone, which he's holding outside of the helmet.
Yes. In space.
In space. Yeah. I have issues.
Well, if he held it up to the glass, he could possibly get the sound. If it was touching the glass,
it might pick up some faint vibrations potentially if he shouted really loud into the helmet.
Yeah, it would sound like a man shouting at a goldfish, wouldn't it?
Yeah, but he didn't. So yeah, that was just quite fun. And yeah, I just thought I saw that and I did think of you for some reason. I thought Elton would appreciate that.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough. As long as you're not comparing me to a stupid man on the moon.
Oh dear God, no! They're never going to let you on the moon.
No. Well, what about?
I believe we had a discussion that you wouldn't actually take the trip to the moon because you don't like roller coasters. So.
Nope, wouldn't do that. No, thank you very much. So, what about the build up to them actually getting the deal for creating the lunar module? Because there's a lot of thought that goes into this way before that, isn't there?
Well, but again, this is something that's never been done before. So, how do you do it? And we have Wernher von Braun laying out his two preferred methods. One of which is direct ascent, which is you just build a honking big rocket and just launch everything straight to the moon and then come back. And the other one is an Earth orbit rendezvous, where what you do is you launch bits of the spacecraft on smaller rockets into Earth orbit, where you all kind of connect up, and then they go off on their little journey to the moon. So those were those were his two preferred options. And if you seek it out, I think you'll find there is a what's it called? A video that he did with Disney, where he kind of explains the ins and outs of all of those. So it's worth checking out. If I can find a link to it, I will post it on the Facebook group, and you can put it in the show notes. Yeah. So that's cool. I quite liked how when you had the people coming and pitching the various alternate ideas there, one of them says the whole, getting to the moon is easy. It's not that easy. It's sort of easy. We can do that, but it's getting back that's difficult. And then, we need to do all this. What I think was interesting there is what he proposed was we send everything in advance and then send him, and then he comes back, which is what SpaceX and a number of others are looking to do with going to Mars.
Yeah.
But in this, it's portrayed as we go, you are crazy. They're never going to sign off on that.
Well, yeah, half of their idea was to strand an astronaut on there and just keep sending him supplies until we can work out how to get him back.
Yes.
And, just keep throwing him nuts and bolts. It'll be fine. He'll be out. If we send him enough nuts and bolts, he'll be able to build something from it. You're actually trying to kill a man by just sending him there and stranding him there. Just wait for the media to turn around and say, yeah, we're kind of bored of that. He's not coming back. And then just sweep it under the carpet.
It's also actually in Kennedy's original declaration. It wasn't just send a man to the moon. It was send a man to the moon and return him safely to the Earth.
Yeah.
It's kind of there in the, in the job description.
Yeah.
So, but like I said, it's kind of interesting that some of these techniques are what they're looking to do for getting to Mars. So yes, it was, maybe they weren't quite as crazy as it first sounded.
No, it is interesting that idea of that concept is still at large.
Mm-hmm.
I quite like it. Well, we've been sending up stuff to space and putting it together for years now, haven't we? We've got a space station made of that sort of stuff.
Oh yeah, and it's not even the first space station. I think it's been it's been at least half a dozen. You're counting all the Russians with the Soyuz and the Mirs, and then the Americans with their Skylab. So yeah, and even the Chinese had a space station for like 5 minutes.
Yeah, that's right. So
yeah,
his ideas are still going around, and it's interesting. I would love to see how that would operate now. How they would, plan it out to go to Mars. I want to see what they want to do with that.
Oh, definitely. And hopefully we'll see before too long.
Yeah.
Which would be nice. We then have this other option brought into it, which is the lunar orbit rendezvous, which is proposed where you send, in the original concept, it stated you send one spacecraft straight to the moon, and then you send the crew. And they go and land on the moon, and then they would jump out, go and get into the other spacecraft, which was landed on the moon, and then meet up in orbit. And obviously the final plan was changed. It was a little bit of everything. It was a little bit of a direct ascent, in so much as everything goes on one honking big rocket. And it was a little bit of a, the rendezvous, because the command module has to depart, turn around, and rendezvous with the LEM. And it was also the lunar rendezvous, because when the lunar module has landed and returns, they have to do that. So it was kind of a bit of all three in the end.
Yeah, it's so complicated as to what they actually wanted to do.
Yeah,
I'm sure it's not as well. The first drawings that we see are a massive rocket, and he's like, "Yeah, we can put that on there." Well, hang on, how about we just send this tiny little piece here, and it's so much smaller than what they've envisaged or actually want to do with that. But then again, they're going from science fiction that they haven't worked this stuff out yet. And so it's, we just land a rocket on there and then fly it back. Because that's the only thing in their head.
Well, it's they thinking one rocket must do everything. At least that was the initial plan. So you have to have a rocket which can get you into space, get you to the moon, land on the moon, take off from the moon, fly back to Earth, and then get yourself back to the surface of the Earth, do re-entry, and then land as well. Whereas you don't need all that. You need a spacecraft to get you from Earth to the moon. That's effectively the service module. You need a spacecraft to get you from the down to the moon and back, and that's the LEM descent stage and ascent stage, respectively.
Yeah.
Then you need a spacecraft to get you back. That's the service module again. Then you need a spacecraft to get you back to the Earth. That's the command module. So yeah, it's kind of all these kind of coming together to get it done. So, each has a little bit, which is why Apollo 13 is kind of so spectacular, is that, you have spacecraft doing stuff they're not supposed to do.
Yeah, that's a big jigsaw puzzle just flying in space, isn't it?
Oh, yes, it is. And sometimes you have to mash the pieces together to get it to fit.
Yeah. So a big part of this episode is Tom Kelly himself, isn't it?
It is Tom Kelly, who is played by, and I made a note of his name here, Matt Craven.
Yes.
Who's one of those, oh, it's that guy kind of actors.
He's one of those. I want to see him in more stuff.
Well, that's the thing, though. If you look on his, Wikipedia page, he's been in tons of stuff. I mean, I always remember him from Crimson Tide. That's like, well, I remember him in, but he's in like X-Men First Class. Tons of stuff. He was in an episode of A Pacific.
Yep.
It was something else. He often does stuff kind of Justified. That was the thing that I remember he was in, where he was one of the lawyers. Was it Justified? No, there's one where he's interviewing the German prisoners after the Nuremberg trials. Right. I'll have to look it up. But anyway, he's just one of those actors where you see him and you just go, oh, yeah, I know him.
Yeah, I had that feeling as well. And I went to his IMDb and looked through it, and I was going through absolutely everything that he's done. I was going, oh, don't know that. But I've seen him in stuff. That's the thing. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I must have seen him in stuff that I've forgotten that I've seen. Or
Possibly.
Didn't realise I'd seen as well.
You do have form for that, it must be said.
Yeah, that's kind of, yeah. Funny enough, he's in a film called Deja Vu as well. But I don't remember him from X-Men First Class, but I know I've seen that a number of times.
Ah, well, yes. He's the CIA director in there, I believe.
Yeah. So, yeah, it must be a case of I've seen him, but he's that guy, isn't he? He's one of them, that guys. He's in that group, isn't he?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But
yeah. Well, I was going to say, we kind of meet Tom fiddling with his little model, and it's that kind of cliched scene where everyone's gathered around the phone, waiting for the phone call, which it kind of works in the context. But I'm a bit over those. I do like how the episode's framed with him narrating it, giving us that kind of monologue over what's going on through his mind and on the project and everything, and it helps kind of carry you through it. Because I think if you had to pitch, we're doing an episode about developing the lunar module, it would sound very dry. Like, it'd be interesting, but it'd be like not entertaining.
Yeah.
But the way it's done is very entertaining as well.
Yeah, well, there's some really good shots in here as well. When you get the shots from inside the lunar module itself, the model.
Oh, when I love that whole sequence when, they're doing the evolution of a model, and it kind of starts off like a bigger version of that little one. So it's got like the round ascent module with the big windows and like the 5 legs and all this sort of stuff. And yeah, you got the little camera inside when he's looking at it. And then, yeah, it just over time, the model kind of changes, and it's like, maybe 4 legs. And does it need the windows? And, we need a square hatch.
Well, I find it fascinating because they've gone. I'm not too sure if this was the exact way that they went and designed the LEM, right? But I'm sure it went through this kind of stage. It starts off as what you want it to look like, or what you think it should look like, and what we have room for. And so that's what the mock-up is, with the big round head and the nice, really symmetrical windows, which look really super cool. And you got all the vision from below as well. You got the windows down the bottom as well. And you got the 5 legs because you want 5 legs. You want the round base because the round base just looks cool and it matches everything. And the way that they develop that in slow increments, getting to, taking, for instance, taking the 5th leg off. Yeah. Straight away. It changes everything, but it's still nicely balanced. It's still going to sit as well on 5 legs as it does on 4 legs. So why do you need the 4th leg? Brilliant. Move on. You've saved 100 kilograms on that. Brilliant. And I just like that development of it. And especially when it comes to the windows and the seats and the hatch as well. And the windows, I loved it because they're trying to make the windows as small as they can. But when they do that full size mock up, that was, it really showed the audience on where they're thinking of and how they're thinking and how an engineer goes about certain things and tries to go across certain obstacles as well.
Oh yeah, it's a case of, you're given a problem, you have to think creatively and get around this problem. Because again, like he says, why do we need seats? Well, you need them because of a landing, yes, but you're landing in 1/6 gravity. Legs are great shock absorbers. So you get rid of the seats, they can stand closer. It was just one of those when they solved a problem, it usually solved the next problem and it helped them solve the next problem. And, again, to quote Gene Kranz, work the problem.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
And they get it through, which is
I like the way that the windows ended up saving them so much weight as well, because you're taking out 2 seats straight away with them standing up. And so standing up near the window, you can peer over. Brilliant. It's just it's so simplistic.
Well, it's also things like originally it had 2 airlocks, 2 docking ports, sorry. One on the top and one on the front. So when it was coming back to dock, they could see where they're going. And now it's just like, well, just have a window up the top. And then the guy's going, well, now the yaw is the roll and, the pitch is the yaw. And he goes, the astronauts are smart. They'll figure it out.
Yeah. And they are. But once again, you're turning, that's the engineer's view.
Yeah.
At least they're thinking of the operator's view as well. But also a kind of engineer's view is, well, they'll sort that out. Don't worry about it. They'll just have to learn to deal with it. And it's that sort of thing kind of bugs me a little bit. Because I'm not saying I've been to the moon or anything like that, or I'd had to deal with anything quite like this, but it's when it's, oh, don't worry, they'll sort it out later. And then it ends up on your lap and you're like, well, how do I do this? You end up doing it, which is fine. And you kind of bank it for later on just in case something else comes up and you need to refer back to that. But it's sometimes a problem you don't want to have to sort out.
Yeah, you don't want to create the extra work, and you kind of see that a little bit when you have that guy who's done a mistake in his calculations.
Oh, brilliant! Yeah,
which is again, it's a great scene, and it really gives you some good insight into, Tom's character in that whole kind of like, guy's made a mistake. It's an honest mistake, but he's fucked up, and it's going to cause them a lot of grief. And he comes and says, and he's expecting to be fired, and the guy's like, well, look, go home and rest, but come back in the morning and fix this. When you spotted the problem, you came straight to me. You didn't try and save your own ass, or blame someone else or anything like that. You just shit happens.
Yeah.
So there you go. He definitely seems like he's an engineer first and a manager second, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because you get managers, they're just like, especially if they're just trained as managers, they don't understand the process and don't necessarily sympathize. Whereas he seems to understand that there's a process here, and you got to work through it. There's no sense in stomping your feet and blaming other people because it's behind. It's just the way of it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very true. Yeah, I like the way that he deals with that. It's as the audience, you are expecting him to fire him, aren't you?
Well, you're definitely expecting something to come of it, and it's just a nice little scene there. I mean, I don't remember exactly what the problem he'd encountered. I'm thinking it's a calculation was done wrong or something.
Yeah, well, it was to do with the legs, wasn't it? When they were doing the testing landing on different surfaces and different gradients of the surface as well, and one of the legs broke. So it might be a torsion calculation, or we don't really know. We don't get into the ins and outs of that, but it's just the way that he deals with it, and you're kind of not expecting him to deal with it that way. But then again, you get the feeling that he's open to mistakes. He's open to planning ahead and really not looking back, and always looking for the problem and looking to deal with the problem. I.e., when he turned around and said, right, we want to film everything. And it's half to do with footage for NASA, but also to show his kids where he was for the last 7 years.
Yeah, and I loved that they included that in this episode. That was all fascinating. It was awesome. I'm really happy they had the archive. I mean, I don't know if it was NASA or it would have been Northrop Grumman at this point, or who gave them access. But I mean, it even went as far as From the Earth to the Moon, whenever you see a lunar module either on the moon or in the testing stuff there where they're actually interacting with it, that's a real lunar module.
Really?
It was the one that was meant to fly on Apollo 18.
Whoa.
And they partially restored it to put in a museum, and they used it. I don't know if they restored it for the show and then it went to the museum, or if it was in the museum and then they used it for the show. But they're using an actual LEM, which is pretty awesome. So
the one that they're craning across at the very end, do you reckon that's the real thing?
No, I reckon that's actually archive footage.
Ah, okay.
But like when you see them having the picture taken in front of it, I think that's the real one. And other instances, I know they use it whenever they're showing, like in later episodes, actually landing on the moon and stuff. But I think any times here where they were interacting with it, it was also the LM-13, the one for Apollo 18.
Right. Okay.
Yes, unless you believe that shitty film which says there was an Apollo 18. But we don't speak of that.
No, we don't do that.
No.
It's rocks, people. It's rocks.
Yes. So yeah, I loved that archive footage. I think that was great. Just seeing like the drop tests and the the legs deploying. I also liked how they included some footage of our Tom Kelly and his assistant, whose name I don't know, but shot on film and kind of inserted in there, so it kind of looks like it was period as well.
Yeah,
that was kind of cool.
Yeah. Well, who's the other guy that I recognised in this? He's from Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Oh, Alan Ruck. Yes.
Is that Alan Ruck? Oh, okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Also known as the captain from Star Trek Generations, where everything would arrive on Tuesday.
I see. That's gone straight over my head.
Yes, but everyone else gets it. It was good.
Okay. Well, yeah.
It's weird they got such a big actor though for such a relatively small part. I mean, he has like 2 lines in the entire thing. Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe he's just like scratching for work. I don't know.
I think it was. I don't think it was scratching for work. I get the impression it might have been a chance to be involved in this project and work with Tom Hanks, I suppose.
It could be. Or maybe to work with Ron Howard's brother at some point, or just meet him on set for sandwiches later on.
Well, who wouldn't want to meet Clint Howard?
Yeah, exactly. He's so cool, man.
Yeah. We also find out that, the lunar module, and just, it's explained that it's in effect 2 spacecraft.
Mm-hmm.
It's a descent stage and an ascent stage. With the descent stage then becoming effectively the launch platform for the other one, which is something that's never been done before. When we first meet the Apollo 9 crew and they're just listing off all of the firsts that this is going to be.
Yeah.
I think they said it was, it's the first flight of the spacecraft, obviously. It's the first firing of the descent engine, the first firing of the ascent engine, the first spacewalk in the new spacesuit and life support pack.
Yep.
It was the first manned rendezvous between 2 spacecraft.
Mm-hmm.
Well, manned rendezvous and docking, because Geminis had rendezvoused, but it was the first time they'd, connected.
Yeah.
First
double spacewalk as well.
Oh yeah, the first double spacewalk. There was a long list of firsts for this mission, and you have the crew saying, if we even do half of this, it's a success.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
but because they were so far behind, because they'd had to, effectively postpone this mission to do 8, which was the hop, skip, and a jump around the moon.
Yep.
For last time around, there was even more pressure to try and get as much of a testing program done with the one mission as there would have been otherwise. So that was just kind of interesting. I did like how they say, Deke says, "Look, I want to speak to you before I spoke to Borman and spoke to him," and they're all like, "Well, no, I want to do the mission I trained for. I want to fly the LEM," because they kind of come to know it like we did.
Yeah.
Which is kind of cool. Just mentioning the crew here. It's James McDivitt was the commander, and it was his second space flight after a Gemini mission. Which one was he on? He flew on Gemini 4. That was the one with the first spacewalk.
Right.
The first American spacewalk. We had David Scott, who later became the commander of Apollo 15, and previously had flown on Gemini 8. And then Russell Rusty Schweigart?
Yes.
Rusty. And this was his only space flight. He did train to do a Skylab mission, but for various reasons that didn't happen. I was reading on the Wikipedia here. Basically, he, as with all these things, there's politics.
Yeah.
And him and his wife were quite liberal. I suppose today we'd consider them more centralist, more aligned with what most of us are. Like supporting civil rights and things like that.
Yeah.
But back in the 60s, it's the 60s. Basically, apparently Al Shepard, I wouldn't say took a disliking to him, but he wasn't part of the clique. So,
right, okay.
He wasn't one of the boys. Again, when you think of the Apollo astronauts, they're the, whiskey drinking, Corvette driving, God-fearing Americans.
Mm-hmm.
The 2 point, that sort of a vibe. He wasn't one of those.
Right, interesting.
So, yeah. So this was his only space flight. Plus, there was the space sickness, but it turns out that's actually very common in astronauts. Well, you can't test for that on Earth until you get up there, really.
No, you've got no choice, really, have you? You need to go up there and find out what happens.
Yeah.
And if it does happen, is it that embarrassing? Is it that much of a problem?
I think it's quite telling, though, that if you remember the Apollo 8 one with Frank Borman throwing up, they kept it quiet, effectively, or at the very least, just sent the message as in the tape deck. This time around, though, they were a lot more. Yeah, he's sick, so we're just not going to do the spacewalk. I can understand why, because as it says, you throw up in a spacesuit, you're going to have a bad day.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's just like it was just interesting seeing how they dealt with it differently for both of them.
Well, yeah, I think with Apollo 8, you could kind of sweep that under the carpet. That could, it didn't kind of happened, did it? Let's just forget about it. But this was mission critical. If it was a case of, okay, well, either way we cancel the mission, but one way we have an astronaut that is living and the astronaut is dead. So, you want to you want to err on the side of caution and bring back all your astronauts. So it is a case of, well, we couldn't do the test because of this. There's no way you can sweep that under the carpet.
Something interesting I just read, which I thought I'd mention. This is going back to them swapping the missions with Apollo 8. When they swapped the missions, so 8, effectively this was supposed to be Apollo 8, the other one was supposed to be Apollo 9. They swapped them around. Mm-hmm. But they also swapped the backup crews. Now, typically what would happen is a backup crew would later then become the prime crew for a later mission. And the backup crew for Apollo 8 was to become the prime crew for Apollo 11.
Right.
So if it wasn't for the swapping around, you'd have had Pete Conrad would have been the first man on the moon.
Right.
With Richard Gordon and Clifton Williams. Williams was killed prior to that, so it would have been Al Bean. But my point is, it's the butterfly effect sort of thing. You know, a small change has a big impact.
Oh, yeah. In a different universe somewhere, they didn't swap their missions around.
Exactly, yeah. So,
Whoa. That's going to be a bitch. You're going to be... Was that who Deke was having a chat with then?
No, the person he was speaking with was McDivitt, the commander of Apollo 9.
Yep.
And saying that. And again, I don't think the backup crews would have any say or anything in it. And again, it's luck of a draw. But it was one of those ones where, it's just an interesting thing because these missions changed, the backup crews changed. Backup crews later became the prime crews. So it ended up being Armstrong and Aldrin being the first ones on 11. That being said, though, if there had been a problem with any of these, if they decided they needed an additional test, then they would have flown something like an Apollo 10 mission or something like that. Mm-hmm. So, could have, would have, should have, it is what it is.
Yeah.
But again, it's just like an interesting...
trying to remember that conversation. He did seem a bit pissed off that they'd be going around the moon and he wouldn't be going around the moon.
I think he was upset. I think they all were, but they were all putting a brave face on it because, again, I think it was one of those ones on a personal level. They wanted to, just, hey, being the first men around the moon, that's going to be something. But on a professional level, it's not much of a mission. Yeah. Again, it is effectively a joyride, like he said. There wasn't a huge amount of testing because, again, these guys are all test pilots for the most part. Mm-hmm. This was a chance to test the spacecraft. It was an important part. And I'm pretty sure all of them would have expected at some point to get a later chance in one of the other missions. So only one of them could be first, but the hope was they'd all get a chance. But,
Yeah. So what are some of your favourite parts from this episode then? What are the bits that really stand out to you?
Well, I love the archive footage stuff, just the way it's presented. I mean, I love the episode as a whole. It's really good. I really like the bit when he does the spacewalk and he's standing out there. And again, we have the great archive footage of Dave Scott exiting the command module with his red helmet on there. Yeah. And then he, grabs the camera. But then when he goes away and he's just on his own there, with free time, and he's just filming the Earth going down below him.
It's past as well, isn't it?
Oh, so it really is. It's going 90 to the dozen. And yeah, it's just great seeing all that stuff going. All that archive footage was just so impactful. It was so powerful because they had all these cameras. Like when you see Spider fly for the first time. I mean, that was a really great moment as well because it's built up and then we hear that music playing and that's such a cool little theme for it. And then, Spider's flying and it's doing its own thing. And there was a moment where they were like, oh, well, if he's going to be sick and we can't do the spacewalk, it won't fly on its own. And everyone's devastated about it. But then it's like, oh, he looks better. He'll be fine. Yeah. And, when it actually flies and the music builds and you see it and, they've all said, oh, it's a great looking spacecraft. Really? Hell no. It looks like a toaster on legs. But I'm not going to tell him that. But by the end, they're all like, yeah, it's a good, it's got personality. It's got a bit of soul to it. And I think that's great. Spider, and it's a silly name, isn't it? I mean, you look at what the other lunar modules are called. They're called things like Eagle, Intrepid, Aquarius, Antares, Falcon, Orion, Challenger. They've got these powerful kind of like impressive names. I mean, okay, the one on Apollo 10 was Snoopy, but I'm glossing over that. But my point is, Spider, it's a silly little name. I mean, it's descriptive, but it has personality. It has a bit of soul to it. And, you feel, it's like the Enterprise in Star Trek. It's a character, it has a part there, and it felt good when you saw it actually work. I mean, when you saw it before it was loaded onto the Saturn V, and you had Tom Kelly just standing there, and the guy comes up to him, and the other guy says, "No, leave him for a minute." And he goes, "He's been working on this for 7 years, and he's never going to see it again. Let him say goodbye."
Because they've gone through so much as well, especially with all the testing that we saw earlier on, where they're just going through and trying to fault find absolutely everything, and you can just see them. They'll flick a switch and everything will go out, and they're like, "Oh, that was right out loud."
That was so funny. I love that bit. We've got the Great Escape music playing and everything, and then they're doing the thing, and I think we got it this time, and they do a thing. Oh, for God's sakes, Tom, what is it this time? It's great. It's definitely my favorite episode so far. Just it has the right balance of humor, drama, facts, and I love that archive footage. It's just so great seeing all that there. It really connects you to the actual event, I feel, more so because again, there's a couple of shots which are CG of like, Apollo 9 together, and you can tell it's CG, and it doesn't hold up as well. It doesn't bother me, but you can tell it. And then all of a sudden you see the archive footage of like I said, Dave Scott leaning out of the module, or you got that shot of Rusty standing on the porch there, or when you see Spider flying on its own for the first time.
Yeah,
I really like those moments, and it was really cool. And it's a real kind of emotional connection there.
Can I let you into a little secret then?
You can.
I didn't really know when they were doing archive footage or filmed for the series purpose. So I guessed when he was climbing in and out of the module, that was archive. And all the camera shots of the Earth whizzing by, that was archive as well.
Yeah.
Anything with the LEM through the window, I thought that would be archive as well, because it's got to be. You got to have that sort of stuff. But anything on the ground, I don't know what would be archive. I was watching it on my laptop, so there was only 2 shots, I think, which were shot for the show on film. Right.
And it's when they were doing the drop tests, and he's saying sometimes things went well, and it lands and it's fine, and you see Tom Craven, not Tom. You see Tom Kelly there, and the other guy, and they go, "No, it's okay." And then he goes, "Sometimes not so well," and it lands, and the leg breaks, and they kind of do a. Hur! Near as I can tell, those were the only shot on film shots to try and match up with archive footage. Oh, and also the big photo in front of the LEM. I think when you see them standing in front of it and a photo, I think that's an actual photo. Okay. But then I think it cuts in and you see our Tom Kelly there, and that's obviously, he wasn't there at the time. So they kind of, framed that in that sort of sense.
Yeah. Yeah, I was going through some pictures on the internet as well. I was a bit gutted that we didn't see any of the astronaut training for the lunar landing research vehicle.
Oh, the little flying bedstead.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, the one that Neil Armstrong ejected from.
Yes, it nearly killed Neil Armstrong.
Yeah, but I'm a bit disappointed we didn't see any of that, because I know that's all gravity calculated, so it should land on the Earth as it should do on the Moon, or very similar to anyway. But I was also going through some photos and noticed the little prongs that hang out the bottom of the feet. They're touchdown sensors, aren't they?
Yeah, that connects to the contact light. So if you remember. Oh, I say if you remember, if you've ever watched the landing, the Apollo 11 landing, and as they're coming down, they're saying, 10 feet, thrusting forward, and then they say contact light.
Yeah.
And that means those legs, those things had hit the ground, and he just told them at that point you could cut your engine, and it'll settle down onto the ground.
Then you just bed in, don't you? You drop the last couple of inches. But it was interesting because I found out that they didn't have a contact point on the astronaut's ladder leg on the Eagle.
Oh, okay.
Because they were worried about it bending and then pointing up, and then the astronaut coming down and treading on it.
or getting it up his ass. Yeah, no, understandable.
Yeah. It's imagine getting all the way to the moon and then treading on a fucking Lego brick. That's what it is, really, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the bit that I really, really liked, the shot I really liked, was inside the Spider itself. On the launch.
Oh, that, when he goes, I've been told that it's very peaceful, before takeoff. Yeah. It must have been even more so on LEM 3 until. Because I think throughout this series,
you're going to get launches, and they have to make them different from each other. And I think if you're just doing exactly the same thing again and again, it'll get very dull and very repetitive, and just not very entertaining for the audience ourselves. And so to have the camera inside the Spider and watching everything rattling around, and you have that little washer that drops down and floats around, it's just, I could handle being in there. That'd be all right. Put a seat in there. I'll be all right, I think. It's just, I don't think you get the violence of it though, do you?
No. It's also very strange because there's no windows or anything there, so there's no kind of frame of reference, I suppose. Yeah,
it's like going through a train in a tunnel, isn't it?
Yeah.
You get the movement, but you can't see the speed until you go outside and you're like, whoa, hang on, no, I'm definitely in France because we're not going at 4 miles an hour.
No, definitely, no. That's not a huge amount of fun.
Yeah.
One thing I found was interesting when I was reading up on this is... the LEM only entered or re-entered Earth's atmosphere in 1981.
It was up there for that long?
Yeah. I was just looking on the Wikipedia page, and the orbit decayed in October 1981.
Give over.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was alive then, so that's cool. I was on this planet when the LEM was around. There we go.
Well, if you ever get the opportunity to, go to the Smithsonian in DC, the Air and Space Museum. They have their LM2, which was it was going to be the second unmanned LEM that was going to be launched, but they decided the first one was so successful they didn't need to launch it, so they kept it behind, and it's now done up like the Apollo 11 landing stage, but it's an actual LEM that was built.
So
yeah,
so that's cool.
Yes, I have photos of it. So it's kind of cool.
There has to be a video game of this. There has to be.
Yes, it was called Lander. Don't you remember?
Oh, no, not that thing. No, okay, right. Years ago, I got it off a magazine. It was on, like, one of these free discs on the magazine. And it was a space shuttle launch.
Uh-huh.
And I could always get the space shuttle not into orbit, but it would always go up. It'd always drop off its tanks and rockets, and then it would just plummet to the Earth.
I don't know. Maybe one of our listeners can let us know what that is.
Yeah, that was.
That'd be interesting.
That was a cool game. Although I didn't.
You got the Kerbal Space Program as well, which is a fun one if you're into space stuff.
Okay.
You have to kind of build up all the rockets. It's very complicated, but I hear very rewarding and fun. I was just looking up some other facts for you. You might be interested.
Yeah.
The Saturn 4B stage, which launched the mission, is still in orbit now. Not of the Earth, of the Sun, but yeah.
Really?
It's still out there. Out there with, what's his name's Tesla.
Oh, that's so cool.
Why
don't we hear about this? This should be... Oh, it should be in the general knowledge, that sort of stuff. It should be.
And the command module, which was called Gumdrop, is at the San Diego Aerospace Museum. So I have seen that one as well.
Yes.
So yeah, it's cool. I the mission itself prior to this, I had no real affinity to it, didn't think anything. But after watching this episode, I have a real affinity for LM3 and the Apollo 9 mission. And yeah, I really, really enjoy it. It's great.
Yeah, I'm in kind of love with the LM3. I think it's superb. Just the design behind it. So cool.
It's just thinking that Spider then orbited the Earth for what, 12 years?
Yeah, that's so wicked, man. I was looking at the Apollo Wikipedia page. The actual mission lasted over 10 days.
Yeah.
Just over 10 days. So, yeah, they're out there for a good amount of time as well. So, it must have been a case of just, hang on, there must be a mission background or something, or highlights. Yeah, if you go to the Wikipedia page, there is a summary of the maneuvers of what they had. So, yeah, it's going to be over a certain amount of days, isn't it, testing all this stuff? They must have tested it again and again and again, though.
I would have thought so, yeah. I think it only flew, it only did its flight once because there was limited fuel on the LEM itself. But they'd have done all the testing on all the systems and everything like that. Yeah.
No, it's very impressive. So, anything else about the episode that you'd like to bring in?
Nothing I can think of off the top of my head. Just to reiterate again, it's certainly my favourite one to date. I definitely think using archive footage was a huge boon to it. I mean, I can't think of, if you think about it, the Apollo 7 one was kind of a development of a command module, and this was the development of the LEM. This was so much more entertaining. I mean, the Apollo 7 episode was a good episode. It focused on different things, but I think it's great they managed to make what is such a potentially dry subject really entertaining.
Yeah, definitely.
If I was trying to convince someone to watch this series, this is one of the episodes I might point towards.
Yeah, I would go with the first one and this one. If you like these two, do the rest.
Yes.
Cool. I also like the fact that you get a little bit of Apollo 10 there as well, where they got to 50,000 feet of the moon. Oh, man. And the way it kind of skids across, doesn't it? That must be so tempting you'd be sat there going, well, should we just do it anyway? Look, we're here. We come all this way. Might as well.
Yeah. No,
NASA, absolutely. We're taking control now. There's nothing you can do about it. You can't reach us. And, we're going to be the first on the moon. So tough.
Yeah, I don't know if it was supposed. It definitely wasn't planned to. It was meant to be a full dress rehearsal. Yes, so it was never a case of we can do it. I mean, at the end of the day, though, this is why these guys are professionals. They're not going to do something like that and just say, screw it, we're going to land anyway.
I'd be disappointed if that conversation didn't come up, though.
Oh, I suspect it might do. I definitely suspect it might.
I'm not saying that it would have happened. But it's kind of like if you were meeting the Queen and she was around near a swimming pool, you'd have the conversation of, should we push her in? You would. Not that you would do it, but you'd go on, do it. Go on, just push her in. Go on.
I would like to take this opportunity to distance myself from my esteemed colleagues' views and opinions.
Well, look, if she ever falls in a swimming pool, I'm nowhere near it. I promise you. That's nothing to do with me whatsoever. I'm just saying that, the thought goes through your head. And if
I can neither confirm nor deny that.
If you're flying an experimental craft for the first time around the moon, and you've traveled all these thousands of kilometers, and then you get to 50,000 feet, you're gonna take it down. You're gonna park it. So. Just saying, maybe this is why I'm not a pilot of experimental craft that go around the moon.
Possibly. Who can say?
Cool. Right, anything else?
No, I think that's a good jumping off point there, I think.
Okay, good stuff. Yeah, it's one of them episodes where there's lots and lots of good things in there, but you really do need to see it. There's the development. Yeah, we can talk about it and we can talk about certain things and the seats and the windows, but the way they put it in, it's not quite a montage, but it's just done perfectly well, I think.
Oh, definitely. I have thought of one other thing I wanted to mention.
Yeah, go.
I really like that scene when they leave the Grumman factory and you see all those balls that he's lost up on top of the roof.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's not hundreds, but there's plenty of balls there, aren't there? Because he's trying to hit the flashing, isn't he?
Yeah, he's trying to hit the flashing. And I like also he makes the comment about how you look like Steve McQueen now, and he goes, "It's funny you should mention that. I've got some guys digging a tunnel under the east wall with a tree line in a couple of days." And I just like when they're walking away, go, "You remember when we said 7 years would be plenty? Do you remember when it was only $500 million? $500 million? I don't even remember when it was $1 billion."
Yeah. I wonder what the actual price of it was towards the end. I wonder if it's got it on the wiki.
It might have it somewhere. We will have to look into it. I don't know if that was talking about just the Apollo project in total, or if the just the LEM part.
Oh, okay.
Here you go. The total cost for LM development and the units produced was, adjusted for 2016 dollars, $21.3 billion. It says from a nominal total of 2.2 billion. So I think that might be 2.2.
That's in their money.
Yeah, 2.2 billion in their money. Whereas the contract when it was awarded was for 350 million.
Right.
If you look on the Lunar module page, there's a great little picture of the original, or one of the original concept models from 1963.
Yes, I've seen that. Yeah.
Yeah. Stick it in the show notes somewhere.
Yeah, I'll try to do that. Yeah. It's like Contact, though, isn't it? Yeah. Why build one when you can build two for half the price?
Absolutely.
There's probably a secret missing just in case. Cool. All right, then. Well, shall we leave it there then?
Yes. Let's let people go back about their lives.
Okay.
We've already done 1 3-hour podcast this week. We don't need to do another.
We have. Yes. Okay. Well, thank you very much for joining us for this. The next episode we're going to be doing is, it's called, what is it? It says Mare Tranquilitas. Is that
Tranquillatus? Correct? Yeah, Mare Tranquillatus, Sea of Tranquility.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Mm-hmm.
So that is, I'm guessing it's going to be about Apollo 11 and the build up to the actual landing itself.
So I'm guessing we don't get an actual episode of Apollo 10 then. Interestingly enough, I guess that little skit at the end was it.
Yeah, I'm guessing that was it. Yeah, because it would just include the stuff from 8 and 9, wouldn't it?
I suppose so. Yeah.
So why not just get rid of it?
Mm-hmm.
It seems sad to wash over it just like that. You've got a 30-second shot of Apollo 10, but yeah, they've already done the build up to that, haven't they?
Well, to be fair though, I think that's the same with just Apollo 10 in general, isn't it?
Yeah.
People tend to think of Apollo 8 and then Apollo 11.
Yeah. It becomes routine, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So, yes. Yeah. Mare, sorry, I can't say that word.
Tranquillatus.
Thank you very much. Yeah, that is the next episode that we're doing. I'm glad that you're intro in next time, because then you can say that word.
I could butcher that. That's fine. Yeah. I would since we don't get a proper episode on Apollo 10. I do have a couple of just little things about it. The command module was called Charlie Brown, and the service module was called, and the lunar module was called Snoopy. Mm-hmm. Which I think is kind of fun. And Charles Schultz actually drew mission patches for both of them. And
did he?
He did. Oh, and the command module for Charlie Brown is in the Science Museum in London. So that's the one you can go and see.
Is it? Okay, cool. Because I have been meaning to go down there very soon.
Oh, well, when you do, let me know. I shall accompany you. We will take photos and post them for people to look at.
Definitely. Oh, I can see the patch now.
I think they have a lunar module mock-up there at the Science Museum too.
Do you know, it's been years since I've been to the Science Museum. Absolutely years. I'm thinking decades. Not decades, maybe over a decade. Definitely.
Yes. It's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a while. It could actually be decades. That scares me. Shit. Anyway, so is there anything else you'd like these other lovely listeners to listen to?
Well, there's plenty of stuff out there, but you can find just about all of my content, and I dare say most of your content, over at rogue2media.com. Purveyors of fine podcasts.
Excellent. Nice one. Please also check out the Black Dog Podcast at blackdogpodcast.com. There's a load of show notes a load of links on the show notes as well. So
yes,
if you pop along to the show notes, you can find all the links to all the shows that we recommend, etc. We also have, I'm gonna plug it here because I don't think I have done it yet. We have got a Patreon and also a PayPal account. So if you want to throw us a buck or chuck a buck, I do believe Andy
chuck in a buck.
Sorry, I keep getting all these words wrong. I'm rubbish at these outros as well. Funny that, isn't it?
Well, I'll tell you what, everyone, if you can help us raise $21.2 billion, we will actually fund a mission to the moon. So there you go.
Well, yeah, there's a promise. Maybe I'll put that on the Patreon, yeah?
I think that should be a tier. I think, $21 billion. We will mount our own lunar mission.
Cool. Well, as long as we get Corvettes. Do we get Corvettes or do we upgrade to something else?
Oh, absolutely. It was only going to cost like, $3.50 to get there. We're good. I'm just going to jump on Elon Musk's one. I want to spend the rest of it on blackjack and hookers.
Definitely. Okay, cool. Yeah, so pop along to all the show notes, find out all the links there. Pop along to iTunes as well. We need a couple of reviews in there as well. That helps us broaden our horizons for other people to come along and listen to this show. So if you do listen and you've got 5 minutes, pop along to iTunes, just give us a review.
So tell a friend as well. Tell them to come listen to us.
There you go. Yeah, share it around. How about rip this episode onto a CD and then leave it on a bus with just listen.
I feel if you're going to do that, it should be a cassette tape.
Yeah, with the little tabs covered over with sellotape.
Yeah, no, absolutely, yeah.
Okay. Well, if you like this talk, then pop along to Shonky Lab because that's the type of guff that we talk over on there. So, and until next time, thank you very much for joining us. Andy, thank you.
You're quite welcome, sir.
No worries. And I'll say goodbye. Ta-da.
I should go.